One of the biggest criticisms I see levied towards Pokemon Legends, other than the game's graphics, are the changes and more simplistic approach to the battle system. To begin with the various changes, they added these two options being Agile and Strong Style, which essentially either allow you to hit more often or hit harder but less often. And with regards to the simplification of the battle system, we have the removal of held items and abilities, some moves that previously would affect either the special defense, special attack, defense, or attack stats seem to affect both stats, and statuses act a little bit differently. Now, when it comes to the discussion, there are of course two prominent sides, as there always are with any Pokemon praise or dissent. The first side is the people that don't like the new battle system because it does take away from what Pokemon battles were and waters them down in a sense. It's sort of like we see with the criticisms of the Let's Go games, albeit Legends does do a much better job of making significant changes, whereas Let's Go just feels like a watered down battle system that happens to have Mega Evolution. Anyways, the other side to this will generally say that abilities and held items slow down battles too much, and that this is a single player game, therefore the battles don't need to be complex, or we have people that just say Pokemon needed to change. I'm going to be tackling both of these perspectives in this video and then sort of give my own. So yeah, with that said, let's talk. Okay, so I'm going to start this video by stating that personally, I would have preferred the normal Pokemon battle system with held items and normal abilities and stuff like that in tow. But while this is the case, I can definitely understand both perspectives, and I am going to be addressing some of the points brought forth by both in favor of the change and those against. We're going to start with those in favor of the change. And the biggest thing I always see is this idea that abilities and items slow down Pokemon too much. Every time you enter a battle, it has to stop for a second to activate an ability like Intimidate, or it has to rain, so the camera pans up and then it rains and it goes back down, and it just causes a lot of time delay. Same with something like Leftovers. There's a little animation that plays every single turn. And yeah, they're not wrong about that. It can really be annoying, especially in a more fast-paced environment like Pokemon Legends where you're rolling around and doing your thing. Now that said, that's not really a critique of abilities and held items inherently. That's a critique of how they're implemented. For example, the Leftovers animation could be much faster, and hell, these end of turn phase animations could all go off at the same time, but they go off one at a time in Pokemon, which I'm not sure if it's because of hardware limitations. They don't want to have like 4 animations going off at the same time. If that is the case, then they need to simplify the animations or just have like one big animation or something, because yeah, it does. It takes a lot of extra time that's unneeded. But again, that's not the fault of the items and the abilities. That's the fault of the way they are executed. Same goes for status conditions. Pokemon could take their burn damage and whatnot at the end of the turn all at the same time. There's no reason they shouldn't. I don't want to dwell on that too much, but basically what I'm saying is that this idea that abilities and held items make battles slow is inherently false. Now, the idea that Pokemon needs a change is definitely more subjective because yes, in some ways, Pokemon of course needs to change, but in other ways, it's perfectly fine the way it is. Change for the sake of change is not an inherently good thing. Look at the PSS system from Pokemon X and Y and ORAS. This was probably the best online mechanic we've ever had when it comes to finding all your friends, finding people to battle and trade with, etc. In Gen 7, they got rid of that to add the super clunky Festival Plaza, and I guess it was for the sake of change. The same goes for the battle system, in my opinion. There are definite changes that need to be made. Buffs here, debuffs there, new attacks, new Pokemon, whatever. But I don't think that the Pokemon battle system in and of itself needs to be changed drastically. As someone who has dabbled, at least in singles competitive, mostly in Gen 6 and 7, despite what a lot of people say about Pokemon's battle system, it actually is pretty good. And yeah, there's RNG and it has kicked me in the ass a few times. And hell, there are also balance issues, which is why I personally love Smogon, because you can actually use crappy Pokemon in the lower tiers. But again, that's not necessarily inherent of Pokemon's turn-based battle system. There's power creep, there's ways that they could go about balancing these things, and I really do reject this idea that I hear a lot, that turn-based games are, and I quote, outdated. I hear that so often. Turn-based games are outdated. Why aren't the games in real-time combat? And honestly, again, I disagree with this. SMT5 and the plethora of JRPGs that exist show us that turn-based battling is not outdated and instead can be extremely competitive. The thing with this whole turn-based versus real-time debate, which I don't want to get into too much because that's not what the video is about, is that people don't realize action combat is like a boxing match and turn-based combat is like playing chess. They're different skills. Neither is better than the other outside of what you would consider better based off of your own personal preferences. Some people enjoy turn-based battles better because maybe they're not into rushed decisions. They like to have time to discern certain situations, whereas someone else might have really good reflexes and prefer action combat. Anyways, in the context of Pokemon Legends specifically, I do not have an inherent issue with them simplifying the battle system, even though I would have preferred they kept it more traditional in that sense. Pokemon Legends doesn't have PvP, so it's not like you can go and play ranked matches with this new system, and I have a sneaking suspicion the game was in part made to attract a newer fan base to the game. Again, I don't necessarily think things needed to be simplified for that, but I also don't think it cripples the game. If the Pokemon Legends series continues to be a sort of like mainline spin-off, so to speak, if that makes sense, I'd actually like them to either stick to the normal battle system or maybe just go all out and try ARPG. If the mainline games are going to be turn-based and Legends is already a half and half sort of deal where characters kind of action-based but then the battles are turn-based, maybe they should go action-based for Legends specifically. One of my, I guess you could say, critiques of the game was that when you're rolling around trying to capture something from the back and then you get spotted, you're forced into a turn-based battle, which feels kind of like a full stop. Again, I like Pokemon's turn-based combat system, so if we were dealing with like the normal system, I'd still have this critique, but I'd also feel like there wasn't something missing from combat as well. That said, if they did go real time, they could do something where the Pokemon are kind of like companions like we see in Skyclimbers, or they could even do something like in Gremlin's Tale where you can send a bunch of them out and they do different things and you can control one and then the AI controls others, blah, blah, blah. But not to go off on a tangent, what I'm trying to say is I'd personally prefer them to commit rather than go sort of down the middle. Now, in defense of the Legends system, some of the changes implemented are actually really beneficial if brought over to the main battle system. For example, it's no secret that Sleep, and I guess to a lesser extent, Freeze, are OP. There's a reason why there's only a 10% chance of getting frozen by the vast majority of moves, and Sleep attacks have terrible accuracy for the most part with the exception of Spore. Sleep can honestly be so uncompetitive that they had to make a Sleep clause in competitive singles, only allowing one Pokemon to be affected by Sleep status because it's just way too easy to spam an attack with Sleep and win. Even with Freeze, you're basically just stuck and you can't do anything until you're thawed. Fun fact, in Gen 1, you could only be thawed if a fire move was used, showing how ridiculous that gen was, but that's neither here nor there. I actually like the implementation of these new versions of those two statuses. So in a casual playthrough, you might not notice this, but there's more to the new Frostbite and Drowsy statuses than meet the eye. I was literally going to go on a tangent about how it would be pretty cool if Frostbite would work like Burn, but instead lowering the special attack stat, and lo and behold, that's exactly what it does. When a Pokemon's burned, its physical attack is halved while the condition is active, and Pokemon will lose 1/16 of its health every turn. Will-O-Wisp is a highly competitive move for this reason because it can cripple physical sweepers. Special sweepers did not have to worry much about burn, but now with the Frostbite status, it does the exact same thing but on the special side. I personally think that's really cool. Sure, if they brought this over, they'd have to do some balancing, like Frostbite's not as OP as Freeze anymore, so they could have ice moves with like 30% Frostbite chance and an ice type Will-O-Wisp equivalent for the main game, stuff like that. That's fine. With Drowsy, yes, you potentially could have the chance of not attacking, which is similar to paralysis, but instead of a speed loss, you actually take more damage when you're hit by an attack when you're drowsy. I think that this would be a very fair trade-off considering the sleep condition literally renders you unable to attack unless you have sleep talk or snore, but nobody uses that. These are just two examples of mechanics that I think really are good in Pokemon Legends Arceus, and I'm a little more on the fence about this, but I also don't hate that the status conditions aren't permanent. I do think that they don't last long enough. I think if they were to do temporary status conditions in the main games, they definitely have to make them a little longer, but I'm a little more on the fence about that because you also have your clerics, like those with aromatherapy and heal bell, so it's not like permanent statuses are as crippling as they were in previous gens. Anyways, if you're someone who's been more active in the Sword and Shield competitive scene, whether it be doubles or singles, definitely let me know what your thoughts are on Frostbite and Drowsy conditions. I personally think that for singles, it could benefit the metagame, especially if we see more sleep moves with gained accuracy to make up for the nerf. Anyways, we've talked about some of the reasons that people like the new battle system, and we've talked about reasons that people don't like the new battle system. So is the new Legends battle system bad? I'm gonna say no. For the game that Legends is trying to be, it's not bad. The battle system has its ups and downs with it being more simplistic, but I do think that the whole point of Pokemon Legends Arceus is to focus on the capturing aspect and not so much on the battle aspect. I would personally have preferred them go more traditional with held items and abilities and those aspects, but keep the Drowsy and Frostbite because I think they're cool. But again, just because I would prefer something doesn't make it bad when it doesn't do that thing. If this was the battle system they used in Generation 9 and VGC and all that competitive stuff, yeah, I'd think it was bad. But For this game, I don't think it's bad. I really do think that Legends Arceus does try to be its own thing, and despite some flaws I see with the new battle system, I can definitely respect the positive aspects as well. So yeah, as usual, Ed's opinions are kind of all over the place, but I really do look at things from both sides and can appreciate the many facets of the different perspectives and aspects of a game like Pokemon. Again, make sure to let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this whole matter, and if you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so. I upload monster taming videos every single day. You can also follow me on Twitter, check out my Discord, my Patreon, all links below. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.